Andrew Paul Gosden was born on July 10, 1993 in Doncaster, a town with a population of nearly 90,000 people located in England. He is the son of Kevin and Glenys Gosden, who, besides him, have another child, a daughter named Charlotte. The family lived in a comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood of Doncaster. Andrew was described as a very calm boy who preferred to stay at home during most of his free time. At Macaulay Catholic High School, where he studied, Andrew was known as a hard-working student with a 100% attendance record. He was also enrolled in the Gifted and Talented Youth Program, a program designed to enhance the educational development of the top students in the school. There were high expectations for Andrew, and his family believed he would eventually attend Cambridge University, one of the oldest and most prestigious universities in England. During the summer of 2006, Andrew attended a 2-week residential school at Lancaster University as part of the Gifted and Talented Youth Program. The summer school was for young people from across the UK, aged 11 to 16, who were among the top students. Andrew's parents said that when he returned from this experience, he was very enthusiastic. This surprised his parents greatly, as Andrew was usually very reserved about the things he enjoyed. Andrew had a few friends at school, but his family mentioned that he rarely took these friendships outside of the school environment. They stated that Andrew wasn't bullied or anything of the sort. He just really enjoyed his own company. Regarding his behavior, his teachers described him as a quiet, shy boy, but one who was very mature for his age. On the other hand, his father mentioned that Andrew was a very innocent boy, unaware of potential risks, which made him a potential target for criminals. At the time, Andrew was 14 years old, but physically he looked about 12 due to his height. Additionally, he wore thick glasses because of vision problems and had hearing loss in his left ear, along with a birthmark on his right ear that resembled folds in the upper part of the ear. During the summer of 2007, Andrew's parents suggested that he travel alone to stay with his grandmother in London, but he chose not to go. When school resumed, his parents noticed that Andrew sometimes behaved oddly. Twice he deviated from his routine and decided to walk home instead of taking the school bus. It didn't seem like a big deal for a student, but it was unusual for Andrew. The walk home took about an hour and a half, a fairly long distance, and Andrew wasn't one to change his habits, which made the family quite worried. During the week of September 14, 2007, Andrew seemed a bit irritated about something, and according to his mother, had trouble getting out of bed at his usual time. She noted that this was unusual because he always enjoyed waking up early. At 8:05 a.m., Andrew left the house and was seen by Reverend Alan Murray, a family friend, who was sitting in a nearby park at the time. Instead of taking the school bus, Andrew went to an ATM where he withdrew $200 from his own account, which had a total of $214. He likely tried to withdraw the entire balance, but the ATM only allowed withdrawals in denominations of $20. Afterward, Andrew was seen on a neighbor's security cameras as he returned home. Upon arriving home, he changed out of his school uniform into a Slipknot band t-shirt and put on a pair of black jeans. He packed his wallet, keys, and PSP into a bag decorated with images of the band and left the house. His father noted that Andrew left his passport at home and didn't take any warm clothing or the charger for his PSP. He also left about £100 at home, which he had saved from birthday money. Around 9:05 a.m., Andrew was captured on CCTV walking towards Doncaster railway station, where he purchased a one-way ticket to London for £31.40. The clerk who sold him the ticket even mentioned that a return ticket would cost only a few pounds more, but Andrew declined and opted for a one-way ticket. Andrew was seen boarding the train to King's Cross Station alone. A woman claimed to have sat next to him during the journey, stating that he remained quiet the entire time, fully engrossed in his video game. When the school realized Andrew had not attended his morning classes, they tried contacting his parents. However, after failing to reach them, they left a message explaining the situation. Unfortunately, the message was sent to the wrong family, as the phone number registered for Andrew at the school was incorrect and belonged to someone else. At 11:20 a.m., Andrew arrived at King's Cross Station, and 5 minutes later, cameras captured him leaving through the main entrance. That was the last time Andrew was seen. According to his family, the day before his disappearance had been entirely normal. They had dinner together, worked on a puzzle afterward, watched some comedy shows on TV, and then went to bed. When his parents returned from work, they didn't immediately notice Andrew was missing, as they assumed he had come home from school and gone straight to his room to do homework or play video games. They only realized Andrew wasn't home when they called him for dinner. At first, they thought he might have gone to a friend's house, so they called each of his friends, but all of them said Andrew wasn't with them. It was through these calls that Andrew's parents discovered he hadn't gone to school that day, as some of his friends mentioned it. Around 7 p.m., the police were called, and Andrew was officially reported missing. Andrew's parents and sister retraced his usual route to school and searched the nearby areas, but found nothing. 3 hours after reporting Andrew missing, posters with his photo and a contact number were produced and distributed. Over the weekend, the police organized a search of the bushes near the family's home to look for any evidence, but once again nothing was found. It's worth noting that early on, the relationship between Andrew's family and the British police was not very positive. The family felt that the police were not on their side, but rather against them, as the initial investigation focused heavily on the family itself, even viewing Kevin, Andrew's father, as the prime suspect. Eventually, the authorities confirmed that the family had no involvement in the case. In cases of missing teenagers like this, it's common for the first assumption to be that they've run away from home, since at that age, young people often have more conflicts with their parents, which can lead to such situations. Thus, the first step is typically to assess the family environment. Even though this is standard procedure, it didn't sit well with the family. During the period when the police treated Kevin as a suspect, he fell into a depression, unable to understand why they thought he could be involved. This ultimately led him to attempt to take his own life. In an interview, Kevin mentioned that due to the whole situation with Andrew, he hadn't been as present for his daughter Charlotte, which further worsened his depression and triggered a crisis. Fortunately, Reverend Alan Murray, who was practically a neighbor to the family, happened to be walking by the house when Kevin attempted to take his own life. He heard a loud noise and, using the spare key the family had given him, was able to prevent Kevin from harming himself. As the investigation progressed, it was discovered that Andrew had boarded a train and left town. The police uncovered the information that he had declined to purchase a return ticket. While this might seem odd to us, it didn't strike Andrew's family as unusual. According to his father, Andrew knew several people in London, so it wouldn't have been difficult for him to find a place to stay. He could even have stayed at his grandmother's house. Andrew's family went to London and distributed flyers with his face all over the area where family acquaintances lived. The South Yorkshire Police, who were in charge of the case, asked the transport police officers to try and identify Andrew in the CCTV footage from the station on the day he disappeared, but they were unable to locate him in the footage. It wasn't until 3 weeks later, when the police sent their own officers to investigate the footage, that they were finally able to spot Andrew at the station. This image of him at the station began circulating in the media, along with a photo of his ear, which, as mentioned earlier, had a distinctive fold-like mark, making it easier for people to identify him if he were spotted on the street. Another criticism leveled at the police in this case was their delay in reviewing the CCTV footage. According to some sources, London is among the top 10 most surveilled cities in the world. It is the most surveilled city in the UK, with over 500,000 cameras spread throughout the city. To give you an idea, a Londoner is caught on camera at least 100 times a day. Had the CCTV footage been reviewed in time, it would have been possible to trace nearly all of Andrew's movements through London, but unfortunately this wasn't done. As they investigated the reasons why Andrew decided to go to London, the family theorized that he might have met someone online and traveled to meet this person, as once again, he would have had somewhere to stay in London, which made him feel secure enough to do so. The police examined the computers at his school and the nearby library, but nothing related to this was found. The only computer at home was his sister's laptop, which had been bought 8 weeks prior. Andrew also hadn't linked his email to his PSP, so it wasn't possible to trace anything from it either. His sister commented that the theory of Andrew meeting someone online didn't make much sense, as he didn't usually use social media. Another theory that emerged during the investigation was that Andrew had traveled to visit the city's tourist attractions. He loved London and knew how to use the public transportation system there, which made him confident enough to make the journey alone. At the time, a YouTube event was taking place in the city, and Kevin suggested that Andrew might have traveled to attend it. However, no evidence was found to suggest he went to the event. Andrew was also a fan of several rock bands, two of which had upcoming concerts: 30 Seconds to Mars, whose concert took place the night he disappeared, and The Skiff, which was scheduled for a few days later. The Skiff concert was the lead singer's farewell show, making it a unique event, which increased the possibility that Andrew had traveled for this reason. The police requested that anyone with videos or photos from the concert send them to the authorities for analysis, but nothing turned up. Another band Andrew was a fan of, called Rede, was also performing at the time, but the show was invite-only. The only way to attend was by winning contests or ticket giveaways. The police, with the help of the band itself, investigated the possibility that Andrew had won a ticket, but again, nothing was found. All these possibilities were analyzed because Andrew's father believed that he might have done something like trying to fulfill a dream, such as attending one of these concerts, thinking it would be easier to forgive his disappearance. Another theory that was raised was related to one of Andrew's favorite TV shows, The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin, from the 1970s, where the protagonist fakes his death to start a new life. This led to speculation that Andrew may have been inspired by the show and disappeared to create a new life for himself. In the first year after Andrew's disappearance, 122 potential sightings were reported across England, with only 45 of them in London. Out of all of these, only 3 were seriously considered, as they seemed more credible. The witnesses claimed to have spoken with Andrew, and both the physical description and personality matched. The most credible sighting of Andrew reportedly occurred on the day of his disappearance, around noon, which is approximately 2.5 miles from King's Cross Station. The witness who saw Andrew at the pizzeria recalled the way he spoke to her and others at the location, leading the family to believe it really could have been Andrew. However, like many security systems, the Pizza Hut's cameras only stored footage for a limited time before automatically overwriting old files. By the time the authorities requested the recordings, they had already been erased. Among the numerous sightings, a woman claimed to have spoken with a boy who looked a lot like Andrew at Covent Garden, a month after his disappearance. She said she told him that he resembled the boy she had seen on TV who was missing, to which he replied that he wasn't him. According to Andrew's father, the police failed to investigate any of these sightings properly and only attempted to contact the woman who had spoken with Andrew at Covent Garden 6 weeks later. In 2008, an unidentified man went to the Hereford police station during the night and used the intercom to report that he had information about Andrew. However, since there was no one at the reception desk, the man waited for several minutes, and by the time an officer came down to meet him, he had already left. The police made a public appeal asking the man to come forward again. Later, an anonymous letter was sent to the BBC in which someone claimed to be that man and said they had seen Andrew in the town of Shrewsbury that same month. It was never confirmed whether Andrew had been in that location or if the man was indeed the same one who had gone to the police station. In 2009, Andrew's father reached out to the LGBT community for help. They considered the possibility that Andrew may have been struggling with his sexuality, and since his parents were religious, he might have been afraid to open up or be discovered, leading him to run away. Kevin mentioned that this would never have been a problem, and that Andrew was deeply loved by his entire family. In 2011, the family hired a private company to search the River Thames, which flows through southern England, including London. Using sonar technology, which is typically employed to locate objects or bodies in the water, the company conducted a thorough search of the river. During this search, a body was discovered, but it was not Andrew's. In September 2017, the police announced they were using new resources in the search for Andrew, including tracking prescriptions for lenses similar to the ones Andrew wore, and issuing requests for documents such as passports, IDs, and health records that could be connected to him. Additionally, annual checks were carried out on unidentified patients admitted to hospitals. In 2018, the family received information that someone had been in virtual contact with a user named Andy Rue, which was Andrew's family nickname. This user claimed that his boyfriend had left him and that he needed £200 to pay the rent. When the person offered to transfer the money, Andy Rue said he didn't have a bank account because he had left home at 14 years old. The police attempted to trace the person behind the username, but they were unable to identify them. Less than a year after Andrew's disappearance, another boy vanished in London. Alexander slowly disappeared on August 2, 2008, at 16 years old, after leaving a friend's house in the northern part of the city to return home. Alexander disappeared on his way to Islington, which is about 1.9 miles from King's Cross Station, where Andrew was last seen. The police initially connected the two cases, raising the hypothesis of a serial killer operating in the city. Although this theory seemed plausible, it was eventually dismissed. The case remained without updates until January 11, 2022, when detectives investigating Andrew's case reported that, in December 2021, two men, one aged 38 and the other 45, had been arrested on suspicion of kidnapping and human trafficking. Several devices were seized and analyzed over the following months. In September 2023, the two men were released, and all charges against them were dropped. According to authorities, they were not involved in any illegal activity, nor in Andrew Gosden's disappearance. This was the last update released by the authorities regarding the case, and to this day, no one knows what truly happened to Andrew Gosden. But what about you? Do you believe Andrew ran away on his own, or was he taken by someone? Share your opinion in the comments below.